Hi. How you doing? Hey, Greg. Hey, Terry. How you doing?
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Can you stop and pick up something for Dennis in my office?
Yeah. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
will.
I tried to get there, but couldn't.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you for coming. I'm Chief Jackson. With me is Mayor Eklund, Jason Schmidt, District Attorney, Deputy Chief Forrester, and Lieutenant Wozniak. Today, we would like to give a update as to the Michael Burham case that happened last year on May 11th. On May 11th, at approximately 4:25 a.m., we responded to an address on William Street in the city for an unresponsive female. Officers found deceased 34-year-old Kayla Hodgkin, a victim of gunshot wounds. Approximately 8 minutes later, officers responded to another address on a reported arson. It was quickly determined that Burham was the suspect in both those cases. On May 20th, it was believed Burham kidnapped a couple in Sheffield, Pennsylvania. On May 24th, Burham was located in South Carolina after multiple reports throughout, which was given out by law enforcement in New York, Pennsylvania, nationwide, that we were looking for Burham. On June 19th, he was arraigned in Warren, Pennsylvania. Well, let me rewind. On May 24th, Burham was located in South Carolina. On June 19th, he was arraigned in Warren, Pennsylvania, and on July 6th, he escaped from the Warren County, Pennsylvania jail. On July 15th, Burham was located outside Warren, Pennsylvania. He has been sentenced to 25 to 50 years for kidnapping, burglary, and escape convictions in Pennsylvania. That is so far where we stand with Burham. So on that, I will turn it over to Chautauqua County District Attorney Jason Schmidt. Thank you.
Good morning. So after the crime was committed, there was a massive investigation, and that implicated a number of different agencies, with Jamestown being the lead agency. But we got in touch with Warren City, and the city police were very helpful with us. PSP, Pennsylvania State Police, assisted us. Rob Green and his district attorney's office in Warren County, Pennsylvania, was very helpful. And then, as everybody knows, as this event became more of it changed from a localized event to one that crossed state lines and eventually led us into South Carolina. The FBI was of assistance to us. Numerous local, state, and federal authorities all assisted us. I think it's important to recognize that Jamestown at all times was the lead on this. Now, a lot of times when there's a violent crime, we have a public safety concern to make sure that we get that person off the street so that we can keep our community safe. Here we were afforded the opportunity to take some time before we charge so that we can get some forensics testing completed, and we can complete most of our investigation. Anytime somebody's charged or accused of a crime, that investigation continues. The investigation continues even after the prosecution begins. We never stop investigating and developing evidence. As much as we can, we try to develop the best case before we go forward. Here we had a little bit of additional time because we coordinated in advance with U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI, PSP and Warren City Police and Rob Green in that office so that we can delay our prosecution, knowing that with the exception of a brief hiccup in Warren City, that Mr. Burham was off the streets. So in any event, in February, we went into grand jury and we had a presentation, and the Chautauqua County grand jury issued what was then a sealed indictment, so it was a secret matter that we couldn't discuss publicly, charging Mr. Burham with murder in the first degree, murder in the second degree, and then arson in the third degree. Now, most of the crimes that occur, homicide level crimes, murder in New York State, we generally charge murder in the second degree. If you intentionally cause the death of another person, that's murder in the second degree. There are some enhancements under New York State law, depending upon the victim of the crime, where there is such a thing as murder in the first degree. Now, murder in the second degree, maximum sentence is 25 to life. Murder in the first degree has the exposure of life in prison without the ability to be released under parole supervision. There's a number of types of victims of murder that would give rise to a murder in the first degree charge. Certainly if a police officer is killed in the line of duty, and that's murder in the first degree. If a victim of a crime is killed, or a witness to a crime, in order to prevent that person from testifying in a criminal proceeding, that's murder in the first degree. So we presented some evidence concerning the background here of Kayla Hodgkin, and I would just point out to everybody here that that Kayla had come to the police for help a month earlier. She had worked with a program that the police agency and the Jamestown City Administration had developed called the Project Crossroads program. That program was developed to help domestic violence victims, and that's very important because that's a category of victims that we care very much about. They require a little bit of hand-holding in order to get them through the criminal justice process. And Jamestown has a Crossroads program. They've invested heavily in it. The officer that was assigned to that program did a lot of hand-holding with Ms. Hodgkin, and eventually charges were filed. There was a rape in the first-degree charge, forcible rape charge, together with unlawful imprisonment in the second-degree charge that was filed 2 weeks before Kayla was murdered. So we were mindful of that, and we presented some evidence concerning that to our grand jury. We obtained the sealed indictment that was then unsealed at Mr. Burham's arraignment on Wednesday afternoon. Tuesday evening, we had completed our extradition process. It was a process that took us a number of months to get to the point where we could bring him back, and we're pleased that we now have him in our Chautauqua County Jail. We're mindful of what occurred in Warren. He will remain in Chautauqua County as best as we can tell throughout the pendency of the case, and we're going to be prosecuting that case. Our next major event in the case is on August 23rd. It's a discovery conference. We are now working to disseminate all of the investigation materials that were developed over the last year and a half or so since Kayla was, murdered. We're going to put that out to the defense. They're going to have an opportunity then to review all the materials that we have collected. We'll have some motion practice. There'll be hearings. We anticipate there'll be quite a bit of litigation. I'm anticipating giving the litigation that we're looking forward to, and our trial calendar here in Chautauqua County, that by next summer-ish, we will be in a position to go to trial on Mr. Burham's case. We look forward to that. We'll be ready for it. I should point out, just as we all recognize, it's obvious that we're all afforded the presumption of innocence here until we prove otherwise. Mr. Burham is just accused of the crimes that I've outlined for all of you. But in any event, we'll be ready when the time comes to prove our case. And with that, I think that we should just also acknowledge that that Kayla Hodgkin herself is, her family, everything that I've heard about her is just that this was a loving, caring mother who just lived for her 3 children. She was shot to death in her own home with her kids at home together with her dog, their family dog. So We don't want to lose sight of that. We've tried to maintain contact with the Hodgkin family as best as we can. We've held this news conference because we think that the public has a right to know. We have to balance the need for transparency, which I think is very important, together with maintaining the integrity of any criminal prosecution, and we'll try our best to answer your questions. If we can't be altogether, candid with you, it's only because we want to maintain the integrity of our case.
District Attorney, I know you briefly outlined the timeline here, but people are going to ask, it's been over a year, and if you could run us through again why it took so long to bring, murder charge.
Well, as I was mentioning, there are instances where we will file charges immediately because we got to get a suspect off the streets. It's just a matter of public safety. Here, we had collected tangible objects at the 2 crime scenes. We had to have those objects tested. We rely on outside laboratories, including New York State Police. PSP and their labs conducted some of the testing, and then we referred some of the matters out to the FBI because they have more sensitive equipment that is available to us. We also rely on Erie County. We don't have a local crime lab available to us. With all of that, Jamestown police have it's a very difficult job of trying to coordinate with each of these other, forensic laboratories, but we were able to achieve that, or they were, and we all worked together to get that the evidence that was developed from those laboratories to us. We felt that we were in a good position to proceed forward. There is no statute of limitations in a murder. So we could sit tight as long as we wanted. We could have waited 5 years. Mr. Burham was in Pennsylvania State Prison. We thought it was appropriate for the benefit of the community, for all of us, that we now proceed.
When it came to that initial rape charge, does that still stand? What happened there?
No, unfortunately, without a victim, we can't prosecute that case. We're certainly mindful it's part of the context of this case, but we had no choice but to dismiss the rape in the first-degree charge.
Jason, while you're talking about that rape charge, Project Crossroads, you mentioned, was involved in this, the rape and the unlawful imprisonment. Was there any sense that her safety was compromised and maybe she should have been moved to a safe house or something like that?
It's hard to speak to that. From what I can see, and we do have some access to some of the recordings between Jamestown police officers and Kayla Hodgkin as she was contemplating the difficult job of going forward that a lot of victims of domestic violence have to contemplate before they make a move against an intimate partner or an ex-intimate partner. There was really no, indication that I could see that something preemptive should have occurred here. And I would point out that in our community, it's very difficult for us we don't have the resources, unfortunately, available to us to protect each and every person before a crime occurs preemptively.
Have changes been made to how these cases are handled?
No, I don't think the question presupposes that maybe there was a lapse here that needed to be filled in, and none of that occurred here. These things happen. We don't have control over everything, but it's going to happen. It's unfortunate.
Could you talk about the grand jury? They handed up an indictment in February. Why sit on it? I mean, he was already in custody.
Yeah, so in New York State, there's a number of ways to file charges. Now, some of them occur on a local level. The police will file a charge. That's in a situation we would do that where we had somebody out in the streets. We need to have legal authority to pick them up and take them off the streets. So they may file felony complaints locally. If we go into grand jury directly, that's a secret proceeding. That's a sealed indictment under the law. It doesn't get unsealed until the arraignment process. So between February and now, we were working to get him back here. There's an extradition process based upon agreements between various states. And when that occurs, every person accused of a crime has the right to contest the extradition. And there was some contested proceedings here, but eventually we were in a position where Mr. Burham was able to return to our county.
You mentioned him being held in Chautauqua County, and what is being done? Is anything being done to ensure that something doesn't happen here like it did in Warren?
We're all mindful of what happened in Warren. I would refer any of those questions to our sheriff. The sheriff was part of this process. They were very much aware, and they handled some of the extradition for us in order to transport him from Pennsylvania into their facility in Mayville. I think we're very comfortable that we're not going to have a repeat of what occurred in Warren City.
Could you just talk about how her kids are doing? One of her kids, this is their dad, this is the traumatic thing for them to go through.
Yeah, so all three children were home when this occurred. This is not a, this is an event that's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. You can imagine. I could say so much about this. I'm not looking to, create, sympathy for the victims here, but yes, this is an ongoing event. I would also say that the Jamestown police have been involved in that process too. I mean, even after this, Jamestown police officers themselves have reached out wanting to assist with the family. We're all involved in this. We recognize the human element to this. This is a traumatic event that will live with them forever.
How old can you just generally, were they little kids, teenagers?
You have three separate children, the oldest of which is, let's just say, high school aged.
Are you confident that you'll be able to, bring justice for the victims in this case? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I can't vouch for the integrity or the strength of our case because I don't think that that's appropriate to do. But I would say that we don't go forward unless we are confident. Like, nothing's 100% in this world, and we live in an environment right now that's extremely difficult for law enforcement because of the demands placed upon us with relatively little resources to comply with discovery and so forth. But we try our very best. We have a case that we believe in. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Can you explain the arson charge? Is that the ex-girlfriend's car, or wasn't there a company, like an industrial company, that was also an arson around the same time? Is it both of those, or is it one of those instances?
The third count of the indictment that was just unsealed is arson in the third degree, and it relates to the intentional burning of an automobile.
Was that Kayla's friend's car?
That was not connected to Kayla.
Okay. And the objects that you said needed to be processed, can you give us any more information on those?
There were some physical objects inside the house that we recovered at the scene. Two of those objects were utilized in order to gain entry into the house in the middle of the night or the early morning hours while the occupants inside were sleeping. We recovered those, and those required some testing. There was some similarity between objects recovered at the murder scene and the arson scene, and tying those together were very important to us.
Can you talk about what this means to you and to Jamestown to finally have this indictment, to have it, this part of the case is finally going through?
Well, you're speaking to the psychology of a community that's been beaten up, quite a bit here. We are not, a lot of you guys are from outside the area. You're familiar with us a little bit, but not so much. We are, frankly, very overwhelmed with violent crimes. Some of this has nothing to do with us. The proliferation and the scourge of drugs have led to all kinds of violent crimes. I'm not suggesting at all that was part of this, but we are overwhelmed to begin with. So something like any violent crime hits home, but something like this where we have somebody who had come to the police for help, and the police were doing all that they could to help her, and in fact had followed the process, and we had somebody here that was taken from us under these circumstances. Well, that just implicates the entire community, and we were very well aware. You could see it. You could see that everybody cared about Kayla and what happened to her, because it really could happen to anybody. That doesn't suggest that Mr. Burham is guilty. It's just the context of this case, and that's why we felt that it was appropriate to come forward with a press conference to alert the public as to what's occurred here. Again, Mr. Burham is presumed to be innocent until we can prove otherwise.
Jason, the media advisory hinted about the possibility of additional charges. Are there any others that are being considered?
No, I think at this point we've landed on the appropriate charges. Every agency or every prosecutor's office has a different style. I'm sure you can look at the fact pattern and you can fit it into several different charges. But the big ticket item for us is the murder in the first degree charge. We did also indict under a murder in the second degree charge. That's our basic level murder. If you intentionally take the life of another person, setting aside justification circumstances, you can be guilty of murder in the second degree. It's rare that we see murder in the first degree. I think it's very rare in this community from what I've seen in the past, but I felt that, and all of us felt that the facts and circumstances here gave rise to presenting that to a grand jury to consider and vote upon.
Outside of the interagency work that had to be done, as the county's top prosecutor, what was the most difficult part of putting together your case here?
Well, there's a lot that we could talk about. We really deserve to have our own crime lab here locally. It's very hard for us to develop evidence. So much of evidence now and prosecutorial work involves forensics, and we try our best with what we have. We really worked well together as a collective law enforcement body. Jamestown and CCSO, our Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office, state police, even Erie County is, we all combine services and help each other as best as we can. The problems that we encounter is that we really are beholden to outside laboratories in order to review the evidence. I'd say that's our most challenging component to this, is we want to develop the evidence, because certainly seasoned detectives know, they have a sense of the evidentiary value of something, but to then prove that, to take their suspicions and develop enough science behind it that we feel comfortable presenting that to a grand jury or in a courtroom setting during trial is a altogether different matter. So waiting around, answering media inquiries where they're saying, well, what's going on? This happened in May. And we kept repeating the same tired old song, which is, hey, we're waiting for some of our testing to come back. That's a very hard line for all of us, and to keep everybody at bay as we work to get this case in order. Meanwhile, I would point out, during all of this, more homicides, more stuff going on. And we just are, it's very labor intensive, and we don't have the money to, unfortunately, that's just the way life works here in New York State right now.
The Hodgkin family will most likely see some or pieces of this news conference. What would your message directly to them be?
We haven't forgotten. Justice delayed is not justice denied. We've always, this has always been at the top of our list, together with a number of other violent crimes, homicides that we had here. I'm just going to remind everyone, we had 3 child homicide cases here in Chautauqua County, all during the month of April. 2 of which were right here in the city of Jamestown. And April, by the way, was Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month, which is, real, horrific irony for all of us. But those cases have to be investigated. If I were to take everybody downstairs, the chief won't let me, but if I took everyone downstairs so you could see what Jamestown Police Department looks like, what you'd see is a bunch of dedicated personnel that are overwhelmed, that are doing their very best under very trying circumstances.
Can we go back to the rape? When she reported, did she say that he had said, I will kill you because I was told by family members that had happened. So was that part of the report, that he threatened her?
To my knowledge, that's not part of the case. I wouldn't stand behind that.
What kind of timeline are you looking at for getting this to trial?
Yeah, I would say, so I kind of laid it out where we go through discovery compliance. The defense now gets a couple of months to review everything because the materials are exhaustive. We had to approach all agencies all over, the Eastern Seaboard to make sure that we have as much material as possible. So for us, that's a Herculean task for our relatively small office and for Jamestown Police. But in any event, we go through discovery compliance, Terry. Then we give the defense a chance to review those materials. They're going to make any applications for relief that they think is appropriate under the circumstances. We're going to address those. The court will deal with them. There'll be pretrial hearings. That's going to take us into the 2025 easily in the dead of winter around here. And then I would say we're going to be certified for trial by springtime, given our trial calendar. I would say by summer, we're going to start to see Mr. Burham's case on the trial calendar.
Is the public defender's office representing him?
To my knowledge, yes. So the public defender's office it stands in on all of our criminal arraignments here because each person accused of a crime really should have an advocate for that person present, and they have funding for that. So they have appeared. Whether they're in for the long haul or not, we don't know. I would suspect that they are.
Could you go back, I'm sorry, there are just so many elements to the case in terms of the rape. When did that happen? She comes to the police.
So this crime occurs in May. 2 weeks, well, let me back up. So in April, Kayla had contacted Jamestown Police seeking help arising from a past tense, we'll call it a past tense domestic. It had occurred approximately a month before.
And were they
Like-
broken up at that point already, or?
The accusation was that she had been forcibly raped by her ex-boyfriend, and this is important. I think everybody should recognize that when it comes to victims of domestic violence, the decision to go forward is not an easy decision. That's part of why Project Crossroads was created, because a lot of times you have to weigh it out. You can only imagine what that consists of. For some people, that means they have to leave their home where they live. They have to there's all kinds of reasons to delay. That's why we have Project Crossroads. That's why Jamestown Police assigned an officer to Ms. Hodgkin. That officer met with Ms. Hodgkin multiple times, and eventually, a decision was made to file the charge. There was a supporting, the charges rather, because there was an unlawful imprisonment in the second-degree charge that was filed together with rape in the first degree. And then, as a result of that, the Jamestown City Court downstairs issued a warrant for Mr. Burham's arrest. And that warrant for his arrest was still outstanding at the time she passed away. It was about 2 weeks old at that point.
Was there an OOP or anything like that?
You can't get the OOP until he's arraigned. It would have been issued at arraignment. These outstanding warrants, we all try our best to pick these people up. But if they don't want to be found, it's going to take a little bit of time. 2 weeks, unfortunately, this happened.
Now, were you trying to move her, or was she trying to get out, or, they weren't living together anymore?
They weren't living together, yeah. And again, there's only so much that we can do. We have to be realistic here. We try our best. If we could assign an officer to every victim, that would be beautiful, but that's unrealistic.
Jason, have you had a first-degree murder trial before you during your tenure as county executive?
To my knowledge, no. We certainly have not. And before I became district attorney, no, I had not, handled that as a defense attorney and as a, I used to prosecute before I came back to the office. No, I haven't. There may have been one in Chautauqua County's history. These are, we have a placeholder for murder in the second degree, but we felt it was important to present this to a grand jury that listened to all the evidence, and we, advised them on the law as best as we're able to, and we let them vote. And that these, let's understand the grand jury process. They don't have it in Pennsylvania. They have it here. These are citizens in our community that are reviewing evidence, and in many respects, they're the gatekeepers that give us the legal authority to charge, and because of their decisions, we go forward.
And what were some of that you can share, the elements of why this case was able to go to first-degree murder beyond second degree?
So one of the categories of victims, of victims are anybody who is killed who is a witness to a crime, and the purpose of intentionally causing that person's death is to prevent them from testifying at criminal proceedings. That's murder in the first degree, and that's our theory.
What message do you have to other victims of domestic violence who may be thinking about coming forward, who may be afraid, who may know this case? What do you say to them?
It's tough. It's tough because you got the things that we can say, and then there's the reality, right? There's the practical realities of what it's like to be the victim of abuse. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to convince people to come forward. I can tell you that from a deterrence standpoint, from a societal, a moral standpoint, that we would encourage everyone to come forward. Jamestown Police is here. Law enforcement in Chautauqua County is here for you. We are here to protect the most vulnerable elements of our society. And, victims of domestic violence, rate very high for us. I would say we also have we have victim service providers that do hand-holding here in our DA's office as well. We all work together to try to help these people along in a very strange process because, unless you've somehow got caught up in the criminal justice system, it can be very difficult to navigate. So we want to make it as user-friendly as possible. Let people know that we understand what they're going through, that they have questions, we're here to answer them, even as we do the police work and the investigative work and the prosecutorial work.
In regards to if you're successful in your prosecution, would you have to wait for him to complete a sentence in Pennsylvania before you could incarcerate him here in New York?
Yeah, the sentencing, there are mechanisms available under the law to run sentences concurrent in certain circumstances. Part of a sentence may be concurrent, and so there may be some overlap, but generally the easy answer to your question would be no, we would have to wait for him to complete his sentence in Pennsylvania, and then we would be next in line.
Where was he being held before he came to Mayville? Was he in prison or was he still in jail?
Yeah, he was in prison in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The other thing I should point out is that, and it comes up every once in a while because we have prosecuted cases that of individuals who have already are facing significant incarceration sentences from other jurisdictions. That doesn't mean we let these things go. This is a case that we'll never let go. We follow this to the end because we do that for a number of different reasons, right? Obviously, crimes are committed here. It's an offense against Chautauqua County. We're here to respond to that, and we want the community to know that we care. We want other similarly situated people, to understand that, those that might be susceptible to committing violent crimes or to reacting to circumstances in a way that violates the law, we want them to know we're going to respond. We're here, Plus, you never know what happens elsewhere, right? There's appeals, there's all kinds of things that we have no kind of control over. We only have control over our case, and that's why we've brought it forward.
And what sentence are you seeking?
My goal here is, any individual that would commit a crime such as this, I don't want to see, I don't think any of us want to see that person free again. Our goal is to keep somebody incarcerated for the rest of their natural life.
Would a first-degree murder conviction guarantee that, or no?
It doesn't guarantee it, but the outside, the maximum exposure is life without the ability of parole. With the consecutive nature of of sentences available, with respect to Mr. Burham, the practical effect could be that he's never going to be free again if he were convicted of the crime again that we're accusing him of. Again, these are all accusations; they mean nothing. All of us in one shape or way, shape, form in our lives have been accused of something, that we didn't do, I'm sure, and we should be very respectful to the presumption of innocence.
Aside from
25
saying,
to life? Is that what
25 to life is murder second degree, okay?
50 to life is?
He's serving 25 to 50 in Pennsylvania. You can get life without the ability of parole. I have to double check. I think it's 25. On the low end, you could get 25 to 50 on a murder first degree charge. There's always a spread under the statute, so the judge can make a decision based on the judge's discretion.
just as a cleanup matter, I know he's pled not guilty. Has he made any other statements to authorities?
No, to my knowledge, no. When you say authorities, I'm assuming you mean public officials or public servants. To my knowledge, no. I know that Mr. Burham did speak with people when he was originally taken into custody, but we are certainly not communicating with him.
And he's obviously remanded, there's no chance.
Oh, and I apologize. I should have said that. So our county court judge at his arraignment on Wednesday afternoon remanded Mr. Burham in custody, which he did under our bail laws. There is a mechanism that avails itself for that, and we did assert that argument, and the judge agreed, remanded him without bail, so he's safe. There is a hold, obviously, out of Pennsylvania for him as well. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.